Hello, I'm Jim, and welcome to the Oh So Spurs podcast. Glory, glory, Tottenham Hotspur. But what is glory for Tottenham, and are they on the right path to obtain it? Well, today, alongside a wonderful crew of people, we're going to discuss all that, and also whether Ange Postecoglou is going to leave us with remorse and regret, or whether we'll be thinking we made the right decision moving on from that chapter. And to join me on this journey today is the wonderful Johnny.
Hey Jim, how are you, man?
I'm doing very well, thank you. We have Raj.
Hi Jim, nice to be here, thanks.
Thanks for joining again, sir. And we have Aaron, aka Profspur.
Hi Jim, pleasure to be here as always.
Great to have you on, guys. Look, it's a topic that I think the fans will all have their own perspective on around Spurs. What is success to us? What is the magic place? What is the Garden of Eden, as it were, of true happiness and glory? Does that place even exist? And are we making all the right decisions, do you feel, to get there? Johnny, I'll start with you, mate. Like, in your mind, do you have a vision of what the perfect utopia is of Tottenham Hotspur, where everything is there for you to be fulfilled? Is it every trophy, slapping everyone 5-0 every week, or is it different to that?
It's a really interesting question because the idea of what our utopia might be, I mean, probably most fans are going to say something along the same lines where, you are stacking up multiple titles and everything else. But you sort of, I don't know about you guys, but you reflect sometimes on what it must be like to have been a United fan and in that sort of Ferguson era. And like, it just sort of becomes, it's like one of my mates is a Real Madrid fan. Shout out to Ali there. And, I just like, the reality for them is just so different. I know we're in a different, league from, say, Mansfield or something like that in terms of our expectations. But I guess there's a couple of things in it, really. It's like about the reality of expectations and sort of the rationale of that. And then always the start of every season, there's the hope of what might happen. And last season, although it was, painful for a lot of the way, we had this insane, incredible outcome at the end, which was, euphoric. So I think one of the things that maybe we've lost sight of as fans is just the idea about like the glory that you can all paint with your brush of silverware and everything else, and comparing that with just sort of that's the destination, and then just the journey through, which may or may not lead to that ultimate result. And I do think that the way things are now, the discourse regarding football and what we are used to, what we're exposed to in the media, is very much about sort of expectations being very, very unrealistic and short term, and how the fact that, the number of teams that should be doing this, but there's only that finite number, a very, very small number of trophies. So I think that I would like to, as a fan personally, try and get back to enjoying the journey a bit more. And it doesn't mean that the outcome isn't important, because I do think there's an awful lot of exciting developments at Tottenham since the Europa League, and then huge changes obviously in the last week and in the last few months. So I think we have a justification to have maybe slightly raised expectations, but as always with Spurs fans, we are aware of hope being a sort of double-edged sword. But it's an interesting discussion. So I think that's a bit of a fudged answer, but I think there's so many different layers to that. And I think personally, just as an individual supporter, I want to get back to enjoying or trying to enjoy the sort of day-to-day thing and the individual performances, even seeing Kudus doing magical things, hopefully soon Siemens doing magical things, and just those moments, not necessarily only measuring on that metric of the final outcome and whether somebody's lifting a trophy above their head.
It's interesting, isn't it? By the way, we've all got different seats from how we started with Spurs. Where we are now with Spurs is all the same, though. We all desperately want Spurs to do well, and we seek a common mutual love for that club. Or we wouldn't even know each other, which is the beautiful thing. Johnny's a season ticket holder, and when his kids left home, his wife said, "I can't wait to change the downstairs spare room into a gym." And Johnny went, "It's going to become a Tottenham mural."
Exactly.
So there you go. And he travels over from every game via funding, what's his name? O'Leary's airline service in Ryanair. So, but
Sadly.
Raj, do you have a similar perspective to Johnny in your seat? Is it, Johnny mentioned there, like it's for him, a lot of it is about, it sounds like the trajectory of growth, the trajectory of moving forward, but there are also should we call them the side quests, the having players with flair that go back to our DNA. But I don't want to give you what I want you to say. What's kind of glory for you with Spurs and success?
I mean, I think it was the Europa League parade. And I think the fact that it came at the end of such a hard, dogged season only amplified it. It's sort of like, that plunge pool that people do after being in a sauna. Just that contrast between losing game after game and then all of a sudden, there you go, we've won a tournament and the parade. And I don't know if you saw that video that Alfie Whiteman, I think, took from the top of the bus from the parade, and you could see everybody climbing up on the roofs, hanging up on the lampposts. It looked like the end of like Super Mario World or something, where everyone's celebrating in the Mushroom Kingdom. It was like, if anyone understands that reference, that was incredible. And to me, if that's not glory, I don't know what glory is. It was magnificent, and that's kind of it. And the funny thing is, I don't know, like for maybe 20 odd years, I've been fantasizing about winning something and what would it be like. And then we got to experience it. So I think we got to acknowledge it happened. Right? There was surely that was glory. And then after that, I mean, I guess winning the league would be like something new and exciting, and to be undisputably the best team in the country, which clearly we weren't last year. I mean, that would be pretty great. And I think I'd be a massive prick about it, frankly, to everybody else who doesn't support Spurs for the next few months. And I think to have that experience, which I would not take with any sort of dignity or restraint, to have that and just unload on everybody else for a few months, it's not as romantic or as generous as Johnny's, but I think I would just like to dish it out a bit, frankly, and get some vengeance.
Raj, that's something we have that's unique, I guess, is being in the UK, we're typically surrounded day to day by more people we want to give it to. And that becomes a part of it, right? The having that over people in the office, having it over your siblings, having it over your, mum or dad, or they support a different team. But Aaron, does that, someone who's fallen in love with Spurs, despite all the challenges of a different time zone, maybe not, you don't probably walk into work in the morning and you're not probably surrounded by other Spurs fans and Arsenal fans. You've chosen to adopt a journey for different reasons. You've been sucked into the journey and fallen in love with the club for different reasons. Do you have a different sense of kind of what glory is and why, you like Spurs, and what would make you kind of like, what's the North Star of happiness?
Yeah, there's no question my experience is different from those who live, in the mix full time. I do spend a lot of time in England and in and around London. And of course, I have good friends there, but it's not the same in the sense that they're not. I mean, I don't have family members and an extensive friend network or people I go into work with every day, even when I'm there, who are going to banter me about Spurs or anything like that. But it's interesting because my thoughts on this echo a lot of what both Johnny and Raj said. And that's for me, and I don't want to reveal too much of my own psychology here, but I think glory is when you dare to achieve something that everybody said you couldn't do. And like Raj said, for me, the Europa League victory was the kind of textbook bona fide moment of glory, because that season otherwise was a long, injury-riddled slog and miserable in many ways. And you could almost feel the football kind of media world counting down the seconds until they could, and just lying about always winning things in his second season right back in his face. And everybody discounted us. And then we just went ahead and did it and kind of gave the shush celebration to the entire European football world in that moment. And to me, that's glory. And I think you can contrast that with something like, pardon me for saying, but when Harry Kane left for Bayern Munich and when he lifted his first career major trophy with them, I'm sure he felt something like relief, but I'm not sure if he experienced glory, because at Bayern Munich, winning the Bundesliga is, I think, a bit closer to pro forma than it is to glory. So an element of it for me is absolutely that you're exceeding expectations in a way that not only says, actually, I could do this, but also says, and you were wrong for saying that I couldn't.
So it's the surpassing of it's getting past what everyone else thinks you can't do. And I guess when you start a season, have you guys found it's changed how you go into a season? And I don't know why this is, but I could swear maybe it was an age thing. But if you go back to like 2012, even whenever I look at our squad then, and you say you've got like Carl Norton at wing back, and you've got, players in the squad like Adam Smith and Tom Huddlestone and Jake Livermore and Kevin Stewart, really, that's probably not going to win you a league. When you're looking over the shoulder and there's Chelsea with John Terry and Ashley Cole and Michael Essien and all these kind of players. But I still always felt, I'm going to show you, as almost as if it was in my control, that we still can win the league. We're still gonna do this. But now I feel like expectations change, where I go in the season and I go, top four success this year. We're not there yet. My glory North Star is still the trophy. But I don't have that level of childish belief that Santa's going to deliver my present early ahead of schedule and it's going to be beautiful. Or do you guys still go into seasons thinking, like this season, no, we can still win it. We could still challenge Liverpool. Maybe you never thought like that.
Well, I would say, I'd say during that sort of era when we were towards the end of the lane, that of course that year when we went unbeaten at home, that was a side that could have won the league for sure. Obviously, the year before that was the Leicester seasons, which was another opportunity. And then I still kind of hang on to this pointless notion that if we hadn't left White Hart Lane, that the year after, I think we really, really would have had a very good chance. But that move to Wembley didn't help, and not that we did as badly there as Arsenal did. But I think that those were the years when I thought, well, actually, we are genuinely in a title race. I think realistically, looking at the evolution and how things have evolved since then, there was a little bit of an aberration getting to the Champions League final, as much as that was an amazing run. And we were anytime you played City, in fact, even now, you always think you got a fairly decent shout. But to sustain it over 38 games is a different matter. So I have absolutely no, okay, you can dream, but I have less than 1% expectation of Tottenham winning the league. It's it doesn't mean that I don't think we could win a trophy. And I do think, come back to what you said at the beginning there, I think in a way, the Europa League triumph maybe makes you hungry for more. But for me, individually, I feel it kind of takes a little bit of the pressure off, that we've had that sort of release. We've got that. That was the other night we were walking through Dublin after having been at a Glen Hoddle evening with Dublin Spurs, which was a brilliant night, by the way. And one of my mates, Sean, was walking down the street with his Spurs jersey on. He was getting trolled by an Arsenal fan. Somebody was slagging off him for wearing it. And we said, "Oh, who do you support? You support?" And so, "Oh, Arsenal." And we just was like, "Oh, Bottle Job FC." And thanks to Ange and thanks to that night, we can do that and we can say that. And it's like, okay, it's a really nice feeling, as Raj alluded to there. I mean, that was, as you're right, and this ultimate expression of the ecstasy of something that really significant achievement. So I think that if we don't win something this season, it's not like all the other seasons when we were waiting to win one. But I do think at the same time that as we sort of recalibrate our hopes or what we think might be achievable, I do think that there's always going to be the possibility that Tottenham can do it. And when you look at other clubs who are behind us, and I mean, City's clearly the obvious example with all sorts of reasons for that, there's always a possibility, and we don't know what's going to come down the line. But I think Tottenham has so many things in place, and we've got a squad that's evolving nicely with a lot of young talent, and we've got a manager now who we feel a lot of confidence and to see is potentially got the ability to maybe deliver the ultimate dream. And I don't think it's as ludicrous as it might have been when I was back in the 90s or something, to think that Tottenham could win the league. You just get laughed at back in those days. And I think now, actually, we are a serious club. And I do think, winning the league would be the ultimate. The Champions League would be great, but the league is 100% the holy grail. And that's, I'd always said I'd get. That's when I get the tattoo, is when we win the league. And because for me,
we've all kept one butt cheek clean.
100%, 100%, exactly. So yeah, I mean, so I think it's evolving nicely, but it is just continually changing, because some clubs have had ridiculous highs and then they've just plummeted, haven't they? And at least Tottenham have kind of been in a we've kind of stayed in the mix, as it were, and with sort of ever changing reality of. But I think that we're going in the right direction at the moment.
So, Raj, you mentioned like the importance of those moments of that, but the trophy with that was like, it still feels like yours came down to ultimately like it being the trophy. And similar to me, I guess, when you can't in memory really remember having a moment like that before, and being a Spurs fan, finally getting it was like, oh, wow, I get it. Like, this is what so many people were telling me is what it's all about. But do you still have moments of like, can you still enjoy the idea of a season without that being the outcome? Or is defined by silverware always?
No, I'm sure. I mean, it's had to be, hasn't it? Whilst everybody else is like lifting cups left, right, and centre, it had to find something else. You know, the rise of Harry Kane, or watching prime Moussa Dembele, or Gareth Bale, or Modric. You had to tell yourself that's the thing. I agree with what Johnny said as well. That like this has just relieved the pressure. I'm in a WhatsApp group with some Arsenal fans, and they still reach for this trophies thing like it's a phantom limb. And then I'm like, what are you doing? And then, I just dropped 2 gifts in, Son lifting the Europa League and that one of Arteta lifting a trophy, which isn't even there. And then I just go about my day with a smile on my face and you go, this is nice. But in terms of finding something else, you're talking about the start of the season, back when it was all about just qualifying for Champions League, never mind winning a trophy. Do you remember we were just forever, just at the end of the season, ending up 5th? At the start of every season, I would just be ridiculously nervous about every defeat, because we just needed Champions League so desperately. Now, I don't think of it. That's partly down to the stadium is there, so we've got these revenues no matter what. We don't necessarily need the Champions League money to get Champions League players. And now we've got this trophy. I guess I'm much more relaxed about the way this season has started. That won't be forever. Eventually, I'll want something more. But I do feel like, I was thirsty and I've had a drink of water. And now I'm reasonably relaxed. And now with a new manager and, like a lot of the players we had an emotional bond to having gone, it's not the same. And I do feel a bit of emotional distance from the current team because everyone's so new and it will take time, won't it, to build a new story. So right now, even when we lost to Bournemouth, I was going, well, aside from it being like in a fairly abject performance, I got to admit, it just didn't bother me that much. I just sort of shrugged it off and went home and said, never mind. And I think it will take a while before I'm more fully caught up in the sense of jeopardy in a season like I used to be. I don't feel it now. I'm sure it will come at some point.
And you, Aaron, does it always have to be defined by the trophy at the end? Or is it that you're adhering to something longer term and therefore you can kind of compartmentalize. Oh God, what's the word, guys? Compartmentalize the journey along the way and have an acceptance for, because I think we've had this, on various shows before where Spurs lose and we've kind of found our space in the community of content creation where it's kind of like, but it's okay. It hurts to lose. I hate to lose. But there is, when you look at the bigger picture and the bigger goal in its entirety, this is okay and normal. It's going to happen. Doesn't mean you shouldn't be miserable about it. Doesn't mean you shouldn't complain about it. Doesn't mean you shouldn't point out why we lost. But I'm still okay with Tottenham. Not for this weekend, but I'm still okay with Tottenham. Because you've got that view on why you didn't sign a player because you decided to build a stadium instead because of the longer term benefits to that. But what you sacrificed in all these kind of things start bubbling up and everyone's got a different view on that. But does that North Star then and has that North Star changed? You got the Europa League now. Now is it, you guys have all mentioned the league. I'm interested as well from your perspective. Is it all the league or is the Champions League the true North Star? Because I think that varies. That's a big debate often as well.
I mean, I think what we're all kind of coming to is that one of the things, maybe the only thing actually that makes glory glorious is an element of scarcity. As Johnny alluded to earlier, it's different if you support Real Madrid and maybe you're upset sometimes because you won the cup, but you didn't do it in the fashion that you hoped, or you didn't get the show that you wanted. I can't really put myself in the head of a Real Madrid fan. So that might be off base, but it's special precisely because it's not something that is expected and happens every day. And so I think you can still keep a high bar for what glory looks like and say, and this for me to be more explicit, yes, I think winning the league and winning the Champions League are maybe the next steps in glory, if you like, for Spurs. And I still would keep that high bar. But that doesn't mean that we're without joy every season or every moment that we're not, winning that level of competition. And so I certainly take pleasure in and joy in the types of things that others have said here. Brilliant players, brilliant efforts, defying the odds even against, for example, Manchester City, or in these games where people expect that we're not going to maybe do as well, although maybe City's not a great example anymore of that. So I don't think we need glory, and I don't think we need league titles to feel joy and to be, happy as fans. But I do think it's fine to keep the level or the bar that high to save those types of nights for, the kind of true experience of glory. And maybe it's hard to say. I think we've been taking maybe one step forward and one step and a half backward in very recent years in terms of putting it all together and in terms of our movement to compete regularly for, the very top of the Premier League. But I think we're still in the fight and still talking and acting like we're going to continue to make a run of it.
Yeah, do you feel then, guys, the reason perhaps why there is, there's a whole industry now which is basically getting people who support the same team and making them argue about something that they disagree on. And that's typically, are we doing enough? Are we winning enough? Should you be happy where you are? We have it with the protests groups as an example. Everyone's got the same good intention. They just want Tottenham fans to be able to stand there like the cockerel on top of our stadium, looking cocky with its head held high because it's taken a dump on every other club below it because it's got the ultimate thing. But we've all got different standards and expectations of when we should be there, how often we should be there, what it takes to get there. And then we often seem to fall out in the kind of whole bit in between, even though we all have the same outcome that we desire. But I don't remember this. Does this feel like a newer thing to all of you, or has this always existed, but as we've grown with Spurs, it's just something we notice more?
I'm happy to jump in. I mean, I think the easy response is to kind of reflect on the fact that now we're hearing so many more people's opinions, aren't we? Like, because of the whole social media thing and people like us who never would have been heard by more than just our mates in the pub before, So I guess it's just that opening up of opinions to the world. I suppose probably there's going to be, with the way that the media, especially like the likes of Sky Sports over this side of the Atlantic, but that typifies or embodies the kind of way that certain narratives are tied into certain clubs. And I do think that, like, we've kind of touched on this before in the originals, like, it does seem, and it's hard to know if it's correct or not, but because we can only speak as Spurs fans, but definitely thinks that Spurs have sort of a unique role in the whole kind of hierarchy where, we're probably the biggest club, arguably, that hasn't won the Premier League. And, we're a club that sort of feels that it is in that sort of echelon, and we've therefore kind of been subject to greater level of criticism and perhaps a degree of, it sometimes seems like a bit quicker to criticize and make fun of, or be at the wrong end of sort of analysis, critical analysis, when teams like your Villas, who are sort of in the same ballpark, Villa, Newcastle United more recently and so on, those sorts of clubs, I think, seem to have gotten away with that. And maybe that heightens our own kind of like sense of, I don't know, like there's this sort of, I wouldn't say entitlement, but there's a sense that we should be doing better than we really are. And we're being reminded all the time of how close we've gotten. But we're just there's something about Tottenham. It's like Jimmy Carragher with his whole thing with Flav in that for the Europa League final. It says, we've beaten United 3 times. We can't do it in the European final because it's a final and it's Man United, as if Man United are the Ferguson Man United. And it's also sort of lazy, what I think anyway, is lazy kind of just caricatures of who Spurs are. So I think that doesn't really help. And I think that maybe sort of filters into fans' own sense of like, what are we? What should we be doing? And like, I don't know. For me, then I really want to come back, and I've had seasons when you really it's been really difficult to sort of enjoy a lot of the season because you're just looking at sort of the finishing line, and you're looking at, like Raj was saying before, about, the dream of the top 4 once upon a time. But then it's when you're a little bit more of in a race up at the very top. And then if things go south, it's so hard to actually accept. So you go to individual games, you spend all that money, you travel that distance, you've got work the next morning, you go fly back to a different country. Literally, it takes several days to get back sort of into any kind of level. Like, that's just not good. That's not healthy. And I'd like to think that I sort of would be relatively sort of, I don't know, like wouldn't be tormenting myself, or shouldn't be tormenting myself like that. So I think now for me, we need to be just sort of like trying to just, okay, let's beat West Ham on Saturday, because we owe them a victory at their place. It's been a few years since we've won there, that sort of thing, and just like Raj said, take one game at a time and enjoy it, because I do think that Spurs fans are too preoccupied with the long haul.
Enjoy the £50 million signing. Enjoy your derby day.
Definitely.
Enjoy thinking of East London launching their roasts at the wall as
Exactly.
Mohamed Kudus scores the winning goal against them. Like there's glory in those. Rog, you've obviously been through a career change, but as is your parts, working as an economist, I believe it was. Do you think a lot of this is around like it becoming about loss aversion, more scared of losing our position of what we have as Spurs, and the fearfulness of almost like becoming the butt of all jokes and becoming the person that is being goaded, not being the goader, that creates a sense of, more outward short-term frustration and anger when things aren't going well?
Yeah, that's a big part of it. So I think like two things are true at the same time. One, I think all of this just disappears if we win a game. That's it.
Yeah.
So I think, people are so basic and pathetic, and I won't pretend I'm not a person, right? So I'm part of it. But if we win games, everybody's happy. And actually, if you just like listen to what people are saying about why we won a game, everyone's saying different things. They disagree, but no one gives a shit because we won. So it's fine. It's all just swept under the carpet. It's like a family getting pissed up at the Christmas party, whatever it is. And then if we lose, I do think people are getting worse at handling that we've lost. And that's partly because you can't escape it. And the way people talk about it is changing. You can't escape it because people are immersed on social media trying to get like takes on it. I don't know, refreshing Twitter as if that's going to change the fact that we have lost a game. You're not going to suddenly discover something, oh, turns out we won. We lost.
The game was null and void. We're doing it again tomorrow.
Right, and then somebody's blaming Sarr for the Bournemouth game. Someone's blaming Richarlison. Somebody's blaming Frank, and already it's how are you having a go at Frank? The next thing you know, you're deep in the replies where somebody's bickering over, nothing else again. And so that's obviously not good for people. And I just have a policy where if Spurs lose, I don't watch any football. I just completely switch off that part of Twitter. You spent last year, I barely watched any football at all. I don't really know what happened. I barely know what happened in the league. But so I think, but I don't think that's a uniquely Spurs thing either. I think I live in N1. I cycle to Spurs, but I live closer to Arsenal, and I've got plenty of friends who support Arsenal, and it's getting to them. This narrative that Arteta's not bold enough, that they keep on choking, it is getting to them. After that Liverpool game, I just said, do you know what? You had him on the ropes. You could have gone for it a bit more. And my God, you would not believe how long that conversation went on for. They were so defensive and touchy about it. And I've been there when under Poch, we were brilliant and we just couldn't close the game out, And so I don't think it's unique to Spurs fans. I do think the trophy means that we're going to feel less of it, I would hope, this year. Because I think this year, we'll talk about it later, I think this year's going to be tough. But I think people are simple. If we win, it's good. If we lose, it's bad. And basically, I think all fans are feeling it. That's my hunch on what's going on. I don't know what others think.
I think that's a really good summary and way of looking at it. Aaron, kind of question for you here then, as we move kind of forward to, where we're going to end up in this whole journey. Like, will we actually hit that point as a club? But also wanted to touch and get a little prediction from you as well on, I've got this feeling with Postecoglou going to Forest, like we finally are going to get some closure on a topic that split the fan base in a really, I think we're going to go through a very toxic journey throughout the season as a result, where people will be going, told you, when Forest lose and Forest win. I'm like, can we not just focus? We've already got enough to focus on with Spurs. But if they were to massively exceed expectations and Spurs were to underperform, people would be saying, aha, you got rid of the best things since sliced bread. On the reverse, Forest are relegated. End of the season, people were going, aha, I've got the receipts. You guys wanted to give this person another season. So kind of two questions for you there. We'll go around, everyone answer it in themselves. Where do you think Forest are going to end up under Postecoglou, based on your kind of gut feel? And can you see any world in the next 5 years where Spurs lift the illustrious Premier League or Champions League and we have that night in Bilbao 2 or North London?
So to the first question about how Forest will do this season, the way I approach these kinds of things is the last season, I think they overperformed what they were, and they didn't have European football to deal with. However, this season, I think they have a deeper squad that's actually probably more suited for what Postecoglou will want from them, from those players, than Postecoglou had to work with at Spurs last season. So I expect that they will probably finish close to where they did last year. That's what I think they'll probably do. 7th to 10th, let's say, because they've brought in a lot of new players that are suitable for the system that they're working with. And they seem to be have been recruiting for a Postecoglou-like figure for a while now, even though they were not playing that style for Nuno. To the second question, yes, I think Spurs are on a trajectory where I could see us winning a title within the next 5 years. Now, the odds of anybody winning a title in any given season, even the very best, are quite low. So it's hard to have real confidence in that kind of prediction. So for me, my confidence in any such prediction, Liverpool, Arsenal, City, whatever, I wouldn't bet my house on it. But if you look at the direction that we've been moving in terms of signing young players and now starting to add some more experienced players, and if you look at the way that, at the very least, it seems like something of a forward-looking vision is cohering within the club executive. I'm not going to say it's anything necessarily to do with Levy in or out, but I do think that clearly the club now want to move in a common direction with a more, let's say, modern executive structure that will probably be more efficient at keeping everybody on the same page. So I'm pretty bullish, pretty optimistic on Spurs in the next 5 years. And the only other thing I would mention on that is I think some of our immediate competition for where we are now, Villa, Newcastle, Forest, if they move into that realm, are not looking great on paper. One of the legacies I think that Levy has undoubtedly left, even though people's views on it are complex and conflicting in many cases, is that we're in excellent financial shape compared to our competitors. And so long as the league continues to enforce PSR, we should be in good shape.
Well, Johnny, I'll pass over to you and to Raj, but I have to caveat this with my son is in a Wolverine outfit waiting to battle me outside the office door. So I do need to keep it to a couple of minutes each of you, as these moments will soon pass. But Johnny, do you care about Postecoglou's new job? Is it just a thing of the past? Where do you see him finishing quickly? And can you see by a certain time period, you feel the true glory days could return with the Europa League was big, right? But with Spurs lifting something like the Premier League or the Champions League.
And to be uncommonly, for me, brief, I would say I concur with everything Aaron just said about where Spurs are at and what we are capable of achieving in the next maybe 5 years. I think he summed it up perfectly. And I do think that what's happened over the last week or so is further weight to that the word that Thomas Frank kept using was alignment, and it does seem to be that's something that's now there's a consistency with that goes alongside the different levels of structure, and I think the balance in the squad and so on. So yes, for the second point, in terms of Ange, I think it's helped from my point of view. An unlikely consequence of the Gibbs White affair is that I now care less about Ange's success there. I think if that hadn't happened and I hadn't developed a distaste for their chairperson or their owner, I probably would be, because beforehand, like Forest, there's nothing wrong with Forest. They're the club that's done great things back in those early 80s, late 70s, early 80s under Clough and everything. And it's a nice city and all of that. So, but unfortunately for Forest, from my point of view, I'm sure they're really bothered by it. Marinakis has really kind of given me a bad taste when it comes to them, and that whole Gibbs White affair was unpleasant. So if Ange succeeds there, I think that would be maybe more problematic for me than if he fails. If he fails, I guess I don't know if it really correlates with the fact that what would have happened at Tottenham if he'd stayed for a third season or not. But I do think that if he succeeds, I would find it more complicated, and I wouldn't be as pleased for him. And I don't like feeling like that. I'm not proud to say that out loud, because when I think of Ange, all I've got really is gratitude and appreciation for a lot of really great moments and one ultimate moment. And there were so many things about him at our club that I was really proud of. The way he dealt with the media most of the time, his personality, the way he protected the players, his style of football was so, positive. And so I don't want Ange to fail, but if he does, I won't be as sorry because of that Greek owner, I'm afraid.
It's nice. It's diluted that element to it,
Yeah.
hasn't it? And Raj, what about you? Can you see Spurs finally getting there? And do you care about the whole kind of Postecoglou and Forest?
Yeah, on the
journey?
league, in Pochettino's third season, I thought there was a good chance we might win the league. In Conte's second season, I thought there was a good chance we might win the league. I think we've all forgotten how bullish we were at that point because we were phenomenal that first bit when he took us to fourth and and we started the season so brilliantly. I think we beat Southampton 4-1, and I thought, we're for real here. And then, stuff happened. Lots of things happened in his personal life as well. And I'll be honest, last season, I mean, I realized what an idiot I might look like. I thought we were so good at times in Ange's first season. In the second, I think if we can just hold the squad together and everyone doesn't get injured, then we might be all right. And obviously the exact opposite happened. So I totally believe that it's possible for us to win the league in the next 5 years. And I do believe in this squad rebuild that we've done. And these young players are going to kick on and be really good. I can't see it happening this year. These guys are still sort of like growing up. But I can imagine we put on some great performances. And then who knows next year, because we seem to be prepared to financially commit. So why not?
There
And
you
then
go.
on the
Go
Ange, it's so deeply ingrained in me to defend Spurs. And I watched all of his press conferences. I've still got an emotional attachment to the guy. And so, yeah, I would like them to finish one place below Spurs, wherever that is, and win a trophy and win the Europa League again. Not only for him, but also because it would piss off all the people that I would enjoy seeing annoyed.
And it brings it back to your first point of the whole show. So much about football is just having that I was right kind of moment. But the thing is, we can't control the journey at all. We're just saying I was right based on pure love and adulation for the club and for parts of it that we stand for and we feel represent us. And we can all be quite dogmatic, I feel, in those views. We get passionate about it. And what you can see so clearly, you feel others can't see at all. And I think that really embeds into it. But thank you very much, boys. It was a lovely episode. More of these to come. We've got a fun format coming up, which Raj has designed as well, which we'll share more of soon on the social. So don't forget to subscribe and come on, you Spurs.
Come on,
How many Spurs?